guys, welcome to another lecture in the series of lectures on the namesake. In this one specifically, I tried recording a version of it previously, um, and I tried to make it conversational, and in an attempt to make it conversational, it became so lengthy that I was just like, oh no, okay, let's do it again. So I'll try to keep this one brief, but I wanted to do this lecture before we start reading in further because there's certain things that I want you to look out for the next time you try to reread the novel. And not just the next time you try to reread the novel, um, but also beforehand, like before we start reading further into the novel, even when we're reading and you're taking notes or anything like that, because when somebody else is reading something, it hits you differently. Look for all the signs where culture has been integrated, and then look also for the parts in the story where culture is dispersed. Because when it is said by critiques that diaspora is one of the main themes in the namesake, then uh, then you have to look for signs of it so that later on, if there is any kind of answer where you have to compare, analyze, um, produce a critical response, you're able to do that, um, because you have points in place. Those points you have to collect right now. That too. So, like for example, um, we read two paragraphs of it as yet together. Um, Now, just this basic thing where when she's pregnant, she's I think I already mentioned this, but even the snack that she's preparing, it's not said that she's following a recipe. She's making a concoction. Then, when she's making that concoction, I already said that she's combining a very American snack, a very American thing, a cereal, Rice Krispies, with very Indian flavors. So keep that in mind. Um, like, make a note of that. How cultural integration, or diaspora is there from beginning. Then, beyond that, look into other things, right? Look into things like she's pregnant and she's there. She can't access a snack that's readily available here, in her country. So she's supposed to make it and try to make it, and is trying to get that flavor here. It's not like she's longing to go back. She's trying to make it here. So also just romanticizing that dispersion. Um, then similarly, in the second paragraph, when you read that she calls for her, she utters the interrogative that has come to replace her husband's name, which translates roughly as, "Are you listening to me?" Why? Because when she calls out to Ashok, she doesn't say his name. Ashima never thinks of her husband's name when she thinks of her husband. Even though she knows perfectly well what it is, she's adopted his surname but refuses for propriety's sake to utter his first. It's not the type of thing Bengali wives do, like a kiss or a caress in a Hindi movie. A husband's name is something intimate and therefore unspoken, cleverly patched over. And then, and so instead of saying the name, she utters the interrogative. Keep these things in mind. Make note of these things. Because, I mean, for somebody like that to all of a sudden be moved to a place where 30 years later, or I think almost 35 years later, her daughter-in-law to be, or a potential daughter-in-law suitor, comes home and calls her husband by his name, and she's never called him by his name all her life. Um, so cultural integration versus dispersion of that. That's the diaspora effect. That's the tug of war. Um, Immigrants, especially, they tend to fail for the rest of their lives. But those things then also, when you're saying the diaspora effect, um, maybe also see that as part of things like, say, right now, when the story progresses, we will read things about generational difference, right? There, that's also sort of diaspora effect, because she's come from a different mindset. She's grown up at a different time. Excuse me for the background noise. She's come from a different mindset. She's grown up in a different time. Um, all of a sudden, she has a son who's having a live-in with somebody. While when she met her husband, um, the maximum she went at stretched to, um, while in the Western world, even back then, maybe a girl would have stolen a kiss, or if not a kiss, just held hands or something like that with a guy. She doesn't do any of that. She still only steps into his shoes. And that's like, oh my God, what did I do? So keep those things in mind. Um, that later on, her son is going on a holiday with somebody he is not married to, but plans to get married to. That's cultural shock, yes, but that's also dispersion. And that's called the diaspora effect on a person. That tug of war. Um, it's like, imagine you have a jar, you've collected certain things in it, you carry it with you, and then all of a sudden, I was about to say the jar breaks, but the jar keeps cracking, and through those cracks are some of those things falling. It's like that. Like, one analogy of it can be that. I'll give a task with regards to this, in the notes. Refer to the notes and refer to that task. I'll also give probably some cross-referencing reading materials on the diaspora effect, um, the pre-effect and the post-effect. Interpreter of Maladi is also, people say that it has explored the diasporic effect on certain levels, but it isn't exploring it in terms of the cultural nuances like the namesake does. Um, but maybe go through that book, read Philadelphia, Here I Come, which is a play. Um, Read it so that you can get the pre effect of it. Not just the pre effect, but the feeling of being hit by diaspora now. But also the romanticization, so that you're able to connect it to what's happening in the namesake. Um, Probably, I mean, after a few lectures, I'll do a thing on Philadelphia, Here I Come. Um, or I'll just maybe add it into the notes. But read Philadelphia, Here I Come, the play, for cross-referencing. I feel like that can be a really good um, piece of work to cross-reference with. Then I'll come up with a prescribed text list for this, and I'll share it in one of the upcoming lectures. Go through those books, um, read those books once on your own, so that you're able to make clear sense of what diaspora means and how diaspora feels and stuff like that, because that's a constant theme through the namesake. um, in the first two paragraphs only, you can see that there is constant hit of diaspora. Then I'm trying to think of more stuff that explores diaspora to that level. Maybe even the Canterbury Tales, in terms of the conversations that those people are having. They're telling tales, but or no, perhaps Canterbury Tales is not the right reference right now. Uh, we'll see how to go about it. I'll try to make a prescribed text list for cross referencing to better understand the diaspora effect. But I just wanted to slide in this video in between for you guys to look at how culture is being integrated versus how culture is being dispersed for those characters, because that culture is part of their conditioning. And also see how, actually, maybe I'll just do a separate lecture on how Lahiri has taken care of the boundaries of her characters and given them the due respect to build the story in the way it's building. Um, See you guys in another lecture. If you like this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up as well as subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon to stay updated for whenever a new lecture drops in.